evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Pepino. And tonight we have with us Steve Olson, and we are going to be talking about current events, Nubaru, what's happening, targeted individuals, you name it. You want to talk to Steve, or you can write in the chat any questions. You can call in. When you call in, make sure you push *8 to raise your hand, and we will unmute you, and we'll go from there. And I'm stuck in the middle with Robert and Steve.
That's a bad place to get stuck.
Okay, we have a guest that is asking, can you hear this? They're in the chat. They said they're new. Guest 6, if you want to talk to us, you have to call in on the phone. It's 1-724-444-7444, and then it'll ask you for the room number. You enter 43503#, and then it'll say if you're a member, enter your number. If you're probably not a member, then you put £1, and then you will be in the room on the phone, and you will be muted until we unmute you to talk. If you want to talk, you have to push *8 to let me know that you want to ask a question or talk to Steve. So that's the instructions. If you didn't catch it, they're on the front page of the window. When you come in and you push join the call, the instructions are there too. But if you wish, somebody will type it in the chat for you. Just let us know. Okay, you guys, it's going to be a great show tonight. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And I got a whole bunch of questions. I know that. Steve, first of all, Steve, brother, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, guys. It's been a really interesting week this week, hasn't it? My God.
Woo! No question. No question at all.
Seems like, you know what it seems like to me, guys, is it seems like the veil's coming off really fast right now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Badbaby?
Yeah, it's been really, really crazy, and it seems, I don't know, is it me, but does it seem like time is really going fast?
Oh, man, you nailed it. Boy, oh, boy, the days are skipping by. It's, you know what, I think we've all talked to people when we were all younger, right? We were in our 20s and 30s, and we all talk to people, they all say, you know what, sure time flies, you know, as you're getting along in years. Well, you don't really experience it until you're already there. And it sure the heck feels like to me like it's almost like a blur day by day. Steve, I don't know what you think about that, brother, but it sure looks that way to me.
It does to me, too. And you know, what's interesting about what we're talking about right now, guys, is we had a major announcement from the European Space Agency from their Southern Observatory in Brazil on Monday. And let me just kind of put this out there, okay? And this is kind of sciencey, so just kind of hang on with me. But if you know about the theory of relativity, Einstein's relativity theory, it suggests that if you start messing with the gravitational waves, that you're going to mess with time waves when you do that. So when we got this big burst of gravitational, unusual level of gravitational energy that they detected down there, you know, guys, I think it has an effect on our timeline, and I just can't get my head off of that. I really do believe that our timeline, which I believe time is elastic, by the way, I think we're getting snapped all around like a rubber band right now.
Yeah,
no question about it.
Made it in the window, you guys, and I don't think they realize they got to push *8. So let's unmute them since they're new and see if we got a question here.
Okay.
Welcome, guest 6. You're on the air with Steve Olson and Badbaby and Robert Pepino. Oh, they hung up.
I guess they were just listening.
It's okay. We don't bite, honestly, guys. We don't bite.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid
Steve,
of us.
Steve, there's something I got to throw at you. The video you just put out today, or either you posted it yesterday and put it out today. I'm not sure how it all works on YouTube, but pretty revealing. It was like a minute and 40-something second video. Pretty short, but it was very revealing. We can see the other object of interest directly underneath the sun. And this has been coming up all over the world, Steve. Of course, I've been watching your videos and everybody else's videos. People who are just seeing these anomalous things and just putting it up and going, what the hell is that? It's pretty much at this point, just to make my point and to make your point, because I am a believer of what's happening. Everything that's happening on the planet. These aren't anomalies. These things don't just happen periodically or in a cyclical sense that all these scientific, shills want to tell you. What we're seeing is something that hasn't taken place pretty much in a span of many thousands of years, 3,600 to be exact. But you're another guy, Steve. You're just one more guy who's putting up the proofs and saying, here it is. Debunk this, period.
Yeah, and what makes our evidence so strong on WSO isn't because I'm smart or anything like that. It's because the subscribers that I have all become Skywatchers, right? So I have roughly 10,000 subscribers that contribute to me. I know, right?
Right.
And because it's like I have this, because what happened by serendipity, by the hand of the Lord, however it works, we ended up with this network of really smart people that know what they're looking at. And the reason that our images are so revealing and so, and then the second thing I need to say before I move on is that this is an unprecedented number of photographs that come in. Right now, I've never seen, in 2 years I've been doing this, the number of good photographs, clearly ones that you need to look at, has gone up by at least 90%. Yeah. And I throw statistics out there because, that just makes you sound smart. But the point is that it is undeniable. I'll give you an example. The UK on Monday and in parts of Western Europe experienced very strange sky phenomenon during the Ophelia hurricane. And literally, right after that started happening that morning, I had 100 emails, all from the UK, all with pictures of things like two suns or a refraction of a big orb and just orange skies and how scary it was. And then I got but the next day I got a bunch of, like, the same thing happened from Stockholm, Sweden. I got this just deluge of information from Sweden talking about how they didn't have a sunrise until like 2 hours past the regular sunrise. So when you start to see this level of intense signs where people that normally would never talk about it, never think about it, are starting to contact WSO and ask me what's going on, I can tell you by my own personal testimony that things have taken an uptick in the last 2 weeks. Huge uptick.
Well, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the past to you, Steve, but we already know that the planet's drastically shifted, okay? This is going back to, 2013 or so? The wobble of the Earth is drastically changed. You can add another 6 degrees to that 22.3 that they talk about so adamantly all the time, the mainstream body of science, 22.3 to 25.2 degrees. Well, add another 6 degrees to that, and that would account for all the anomalous things we have seen now. And my question always goes back to the same thing, Steve. What causes this accentuated wobble? If our sun is a stable mass, right, and it's supposed to put out these, solar minimums and solar maximums every 11 years or so, then what would be the causal difference between all the anomalous activity with the physical shifting of the axis, the wobble, being more accentuated, okay, and causing the jet stream to go haywire? These are the simple questions that the mainstream scientific body will never answer, because I guarantee you, if they were able to, and this is my speculation alone, Steve, if they were able to, they would spill their guts, and the whole planet would be scrambling and looking for a way to save itself. But all these monsters, these political parties, these so-called contributors to science, which are nothing but billionaires who want to see the extermination of 90% of the planet, they'll never let that happen, my friend.
Yeah, well, again, there's so many. This is the granddaddy conspiracy of them all, okay? And it tops everything. And the reason it tops everything is because if you really start to study it from a historical perspective, you can go back as far as 1938 and see that Nibiru influenced the actions of Adolf Hitler. When he saw Nibiru, and again, guys, by the way, I'm off the 3,600-year cycle, and it doesn't matter. It's here. It doesn't matter what the cycle is. It doesn't matter what any of that stuff. It just really doesn't matter. It's just for the sake of interesting conversation. I've become very convinced.
Point well taken,
of
Steve.
A 500,
Thank you.
Of a 500-year orbit, and this thing isn't as far away from us. It doesn't get as far away from us as people have been led to believe. I believe this thing stays within the Kuiper Belt, and I believe it orbits. And again, you look at, I used to be very skeptical of Gil Broussard's research until one day, and you just mentioned the solar minimum. Yes,
right.
There's an 11-year cycle. That's a normal cycle. But then we have another longer cycle that's more like 500 years. It's called the grand solar minimum, okay? The last grand solar minimum caused a mini ice age in Europe, caused agriculture to stop in Greenland. You could just go through a list of devastating effects, and the most devastating effect was the end of a Chinese empire. And this is what Gil really got me going on, was to look at the Chinese history. And why? Why would you look at China and not look at the West? The reason you can't look at the West for this information is because we destroyed our libraries, guys. Alexandria, Constantinople, the big libraries were destroyed in wars in the West. China had no such destruction. They kept their records. They still have their records from 3,000, 5,000 years ago, including observations of the sun. Now, what's interesting is if you take a chart of what we call the grand solar minimum cycle, and you match that to the rise and fall of Chinese empires, it's a direct match. And what it boils down to is these empires got huge and prosperous and so forth in these 400-year cycles. And then what would happen is this grand solar minimum would happen. The sun would decrease in its energy output, and food production would be affected. And, of course, that affects population. It affects empires. It affects politics. It affects everything. So you can actually track by the grand solar minimum the rise and fall of empires, guys. It's right there in black and white. But, again, we don't know about this in the West because our libraries were destroyed. Our educational system doesn't go back that far. A well-rounded Chinese scientist or philosopher or historian has access to records that are 5,000 years old, guys. Okay? We don't have that here. So why don't we listen to the Chinese? Why don't we look at what they said? Why don't we look at their observations? Why? I don't know. The same reason they destroyed the library in Alexandria in the first place, guys. I believe that they've been covering up since then in the West.
Okay.
I believe that the plans around Nibiru are that old. Go ahead. Sorry, Badbaby.
Oh, that's okay. For those that are on the phone, if you wish to talk to Steve or myself or Robert, please push *8. That'll raise your hand, and we will unmute you, and you can go for it.
Now, to continue that thought, the Chinese records show this. The Egyptian records show this. And we've got plenty of places where we can see this 500-year cycle, 500 or so year cycle. And we call that the grand solar minimum, okay? That's what science would call it. Now here, whenever I get on with the solar scientists, whenever I talk to the solar scientists, and I talk to a couple of them, and the issue of the grand solar minimum comes up, the place where they cannot challenge me is I ask them, we all know about the 3 laws of thermodynamics. Something will stay in motion until it is acted on by an opposite force, okay? There's very basic physics laws. You can't just have the sun losing energy every 500 years for no reason at all. It can't just be a cycle, guys. There's too much energy loss. Right now, all over the world, this was just on another channel, I was just watching the video, and I documented this in many places in the world, the sun is flashing like it's struggling.
You know, Steve, I need to tell you this, that watching a channel going back, Thor News is the guy on YouTube, as a matter of fact, I just remembered. He was showing this going back as far as, I believe, 2014. So that was quite extraordinary. And I remember watching that video of the, not what he was showing was flashing, but what he was watching was these quick maneuvers of light flashing in between clouds. Now, there was somebody before him, and it was called, and I know he still has a YouTube channel, something that Micah Tree or something like that. I can't remember, but I watched him pointing a camera towards the sun. This was the same year, and you could see the sun just flashing like you were watching sparks fly, off an electrical outlet, or like a sparkler, as you would be waving it around. It would be the same principle, flashing on and off erratically. So I see the same thing, and now it's getting more frequent. And here's another question that I have for you, because now we've seen the oceans, the ocean tides, again, for the fourth time, and this happened last week, and I don't know if you're aware of it or familiar with it, but the tide's pulling all the way out from the Brazilian coast, and again, not coming back in for like hours and hours. At one point, it was 36 hours for one of those.
Right. So you've got this. Okay. So that to me was one of the big turning points in all of this, guys.
Oh, okay.
When I started to see water disappear, and redistribute itself somewhere else on the globe, that indicates that there's a tidal force that's happening. Okay.
Right.
The only thing that causes tides that we know that are very predictable, that are very, very well documented, is the moon. Okay? The moon does not cause this kind of tidal action. This is like a whole coastline disappearing in Brazil. And by the way, it's still gone.
Right.
At the same time, I go over to the British Isles, and I find out that they have record waves during Ophelia, the world record waves of 50 and 60 feet recorded there. So it tells me that the ocean is sloshing around. That's what it tells me, guys.
Well, I find it interesting. I was revisiting an old video today, and I guess this kind of seems poignant to what we're talking about. Are you familiar with the guy named Al Bielek, the time traveler?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Vaguely,
I was revisiting an old video, and he and his brother were tossed into the year 2137, and then Al went further in that. But in the year 2137, he had seen all the coastlines had changed. Now, he was asking for records, and this is when he was hospitalized at the time through his time travel. Okay? Make it of it what you will, but the idea goes to that he had seen all the coastlines change. The people of that timeline had no idea, and it wasn't 2125, it was 2025. That's when they explained to him at the time it had happened, but he was in 2125 and was asking for records of what had happened to the United States, especially through the Mississippi River going through Missouri all the way to the north.
And Robert, didn't the nurse tell him that the earth changed and they called it the big event?
Yeah, the big event. That's exactly right. That's actually right, Badbaby. So I thought it was kind of, poignant to bring this up because we are sitting in the timeline right now that Al Bielek was talking about. And when he did these videos, we're going back about 20-25 years. This was like on VH Beta when he did these videotapes. Okay, so this is probably in the early 90s. So I think it's very relevant to bring this up right now because we're seeing, Steve, all these things happening right now. And the thing that disturbs me more than anything else, and I want you to, kind of harp on this a little bit if you can, everybody's saying, when's it going to happen? and no one can realize that it's happening right now. It's all taking place right now, and they're not aware of it.
Right. And I have to go back to my tried and true frog in the water analogy, right? If a frog jumps into boiling water, it will jump right back out again, okay? But if you put the frog in the pan and slowly heat the water up, the frog will boil in the water. And I think I can liken that to what's going on right now. Like, I get these guys telling me, I have a clear picture of a planet, clearly right there. In fact, we're seeing 3 planets right now. Clearly seeing 3 planets right now.
Yes.
Undeniably seeing 3 planets right now. No dispute about it, unless you're a liar. Okay. If you're looking at this and telling me that you're not seeing a planet, you're either having cognitive dissonance or you're the man. One or the other. Because it's gotten to the point now where I don't apologize, I don't pull any punches. It's so obvious, it's not even funny. So where I was going with that, though, is, I'll have people say to me, well, if a planet was really that close, wouldn't we be in all kinds of turmoil, and wouldn't the Earth be going through all kinds of changes? And I'm like, dude, have you even been watching what's been going on in the last 5 years? Polar vortexes that are colder than cold, unusual hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic activity has exponentially increased. We have a crisis every week with weather or earthquakes now, guys. Are you trying to tell me that that's normal, that that's the way the Earth always ran? Because, listen, when I was alive in the 70s as a kid, I don't remember an earthquake every week. I don't remember a hurricane every week. I don't remember any of that when I was a kid. Guys, what do you think?
All I can say is thank you for reminding people that the reality has changed drastically. And this is it. This is what I just said. It's happening now. And
here's what happens is, because it's not happening to you, listen, if you're talking to somebody in Houston right now, okay?
It already happened.
Guys in Houston, they're still waiting in water down there, guys. Water levels are changing, and they're using hurricanes to cover it up.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Did you happen to look at my Facebook page today, Steve?
No, honey, I did not.
I posted an article about Thailand, and there's a picture there, and it says giant cracks open under several areas, and it damaged 8 houses. So the earth is cracking again. And also there's an article that I put up about a man in California, 75-year-old man came outside his door and fell into a giant sinkhole. So, it's continuing to happen. They are not reporting all these cracks and these sinkholes that are opening up.
And also what they're not reporting on, again, is the bizarre and odd noises being heard worldwide. People think, that all went away. It never went away.
Thank you for bringing that up.
It continued to happen.
No, thank you for bringing that up, because that was a key component of the Stockholm phenomenon that we saw on Tuesday morning, was that they were all hearing loud bangs and thunderous sounds, okay? And it was startling the people. The people of Stockholm were terrified. I get it. If you don't know what's going on, like right now, if I started hearing sounds in the sky right now, yeah, I would be a little scared. But listen to me, guys. I've been inoculated. You've been inoculated if you're listening to WSL. It won't be a surprise to you if you hear a loud noise. Then it becomes something fascinating, okay? Then it's like, let's go check it out. But if you don't know what this stuff is, people are going to just be in terror once it comes out into the open, guys. That's what I'm worried about. People aren't going to be able to psychologically handle it.
Well, you brought up
the chat room that's in Houston right now. Guest 13, can we get you to call in and tell us what's going on?
Right. We'd love to hear more.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you need information on the call or how to call in, just type in there and we'll answer you. Guest 28 had asked a question a while back about, let me scroll back and find it for you, something about the Chinese. Did you have to see that?
I'm looking right now, too.
For you. Why would the Chinese build the deserted new cities if we know that the cycle will be repeated? Do they know that these cities will be destroyed?
Again, again, I have to remind you that the Chinese did not destroy their libraries. They know this is going to happen. They're not in the dark. And what you see China making moves, guys, listen, this is so important. Please listen to me. China has been making financial and strategic moves for the last 20 years, including the building of those cities. And what you'll see is those cities are all strategically placed inland, away from the coast, number one. Number two, they are optimized for food production and food distribution. It is all about food security for China. They bought huge tracts of land in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. They spent ungodly amounts of money on transportation infrastructure, trucking, the ability to move food, because China is strategically planning, because they've seen what happens when you don't plan for food shortages, and they ain't going to let it happen again to them. And that's what you see China making these strategic moves, okay? Not only are they a strategic player in the world right now, militarily, politically, but these guys are planning on dominating. They're going to have food dominance after this is over with, period.
And I just want to throw a caveat on top of that, is that China is the biggest buyer of gold. They have been since 2011. They've been buying gold, not as much silver, but gold, because they are going to be the dominating force in the world. They are going to be basically the new United States of America. They know this, and they've been preparing for this. As the petrodollar is dying, while all these physical anomalies are now getting stronger on the planet, they've already prepared for this, as Steve brought it up. The cities, okay? They built them well inland, so they have these gigantic megalithic cities that are being maintained by workers for when the final, transition takes place, that all the, people where they live on coastlines, right? When most of the coastlines are completely gone, the people who are left are going to move into these cities, and the way they see it is going to start this next transitional cycle of the same as before, which in my opinion is not going to happen whatsoever, but that's my opinion. But Steve, you're absolutely right.
There's a lot of biblical discussion about what happens in these phases. But before we get on to any thing like that, have you guys ever seen the Deagle.com report?
Oh, yes. Very familiar, Steve. Very familiar.
Yeah. Now, if you guys are not familiar with what I'm talking about, go to a site called Deagle, DEAGLE.com. On that site, I'm sorry, I'm smacking my lips. I'll stop it. In that site, basically, it's a projection engine for the world's military-industrial complex to plan weapons purchases. And the way they base their formula is it's based on population, tax revenue, all these different factors that basically equal an order for a missile or a bomb or ship, right? So Deagle's all about the industrial military complex and supporting it with information. I don't know why they leave this stuff public. It's almost like, to me, it's like they're throwing us a bone. But what they say in there is not only will the United States population, it talks about today's population per capita, people per square mile, all that kind of stuff is at its level now, 300 and some million, blah, blah, blah. And listen to me, guys. In 2025, they show that there will be only 60 million people in the United States. In the UK, they show half the people gone. In Norway, half the people gone. All these coastal areas, it shows that there will be great massive casualties. That's all you can say. And why would they leave this up? It's an official piece of information, and you can look right there and say 2025, U.S. population 65 million.
Well, interestingly enough, Steve, the Georgia Guidestones were put up, I think, in the late 1970s, and their first order of business says, number one, do not let the population of the world, not the United States, the world, above 500 million people. Now, to reiterate what Al Bielek had said in his time travel venture into 2137, when he asked for that information, at that time, they said that there were no more than 700 or 500 million people on the planet. Now, that's only, 100 and 150 years or so from now. I find that
right.
very
And I guess
telling.
what would that be? What would that be? 10% of the current world's population?
Exactly. You got it, because
Yeah.
it's what, 1.7 billion? So, yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 7 billion right now. That's how many people are on the Earth.
Okay, so there it is.
So and again, it
700 million.
goes back to food. This is something it's just on my heart, guys. I just can't stop thinking about it. So you've got China doing these strategic moves for food security. Don't think the United States did not play this game. That's BS, by the way. We keep a 7-year supply of grain. It's called our strategic grain reserves. We do that too, guys. So stop putting down the United States for a minute, okay? They also have a strategic oil reserve. We have all kinds of strategic reserves in the United States. So we also have been planning for it. The only thing you don't see in the United States is cities or people getting off the coast, and that's what pisses me off.
Right. Well, it's the underground basis, Steve. That's the thing that should really be pissing everybody else off, because they've decided to only save themselves, meaning the elite with monstrous amounts of money, who own or multinational corporations or whatever, who had the amount of money to put into these underground bases, then encompassing, the strategic plan of government going forward through any major disaster. So they excluded all of us. At least I'll say this about Russia, and don't misconstrue what I'm saying, but I'll say this about Russia. They built 5,000 of these fortresses for their own people. The United States has done nothing of the kind for any of its people.
That we know of, right. And this is the thing, and the other, that's the part of the United States formula that's disappointing. Yes, they're preparing for the disasters with FEMA camps and Walmarts. That's our approach. So our approach has been to basically work with a corporation called Walmart, and by strategically, using their distribution, using their advanced, by the way, the most advanced distribution system in the world belongs at Walmart. I know, I helped build it. And one of the things, I wasn't a key player or anything, I was just one of the peons, but I was there when they did it. And they got their distribution costs down to less than 2% of gross, which is unheard of. Efficiency, unbelievable. So the government said, hey, they looked around and said, who can be the ones that can run our camps for us? And they picked Walmart. And so Walmart has been working in league with the United States government for years now, preparing camps. We saw this manifest itself in Houston. Where were the camps placed, guys, in Houston? The Walmarts. It was there. And then,
were they actually used, but Steve, were they actually used for the crisis that took place with Hurricane Harvey? Because I didn't hear about Walmarts being used. Maybe you heard different, but I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I did. I actually heard that. And again, some of it could be hearsay. Right, I get it. But the fact remains that we know there have been Walmarts closing down in the last 2 years under auspicious, very, very suspicious circumstances. All of them plumbing problems. Let me tell you something, guys. A 5-year-old retail store does not have plumbing problems, okay? It doesn't. It's brand new, okay? There's nothing wrong with it. What they're doing,
I agree with you.
They're preparing. And so everybody's got their different ways to prepare and different ways to approach it. I want to give kudos to the country of Germany for a minute. I did some research this week that clearly bears out that Germany is shutting down its nuclear plants in preparation for the event. They say it's because of Fukushima. Well, it's still related, because Fukushima is related to this, okay? Fukushima happened because of Nibiru, okay, period. In my mind, it's a complete clear thing. But they then use that as the excuse to start shutting down their plants, and they'll all be shut down by 2022. So kudos to Germany, because that's what every country in the world should be doing right now, is shutting down their nuke plants.
Well, I'll tell you this.
One of the questions in the chat is, since China is so aware of this, in view of Fukushima, how are they dealing with their nuclear plants?
I don't know specifically, but I do know that China has made huge declarations that they're going to be off of fossil fuels, but, in blah, blah, blah time. But about their nuclear programs, I'm not sure how developed China's nuclear energy capability was in the first place, and I'm not sure they really invested there like France did, for example, or other countries. So China, No, and plus it's a cloistered, closed society in China. It's hard to get information about stuff like that, Whereas Germany, they just put it right on the table. Right after Fukushima, you can go look it up. Merkel said, "We're done with nukes. We're done. Shut them down."
I want to just kind of like, go to the fringe of this, okay? Because a lot of this has to do with all the sightings that everybody has been seeing worldwide, call them abductions or contacts or whatever. I am a contactee. I know when we talked last time, you were in the same position. You have been contacted. But the reality is, through all the circumstantial evidence that's been placed, especially let's talk about the the crop circle with the not petroglyph, but it looked like a petroglyph anyway. But with the crop circle with the alien holding what looked like the Mayan calendar or the Zolkin calendar, and within that calendar is basically a binary code, and it was deciphered saying, and this was going back years, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, but it said, much danger, still time, be aware of the ones who create the illusions or something of that nature. Do you think that message, because I think we do have a lot of friends up there who are all observing right now and are going to intervene at some point. This is what I was told.
Oh gosh, and I'm going to tell you, I have had a revival in my faith. Okay, but I want people to understand something. Okay, that has not changed my position that what we typically refer to as angels are actually what other people refer to as aliens. To me, that's a straight up fact, and that among those alien civilizations, whatever, 1/3 of them turned away from good. Turned away from God, turned away from love, turned away from serving others as opposed to serving yourself. That is what I think happened in the universe, and I think that's where you get your Dracos, and I think that's where you get your, your Zetas, and all these different kind of dishonest, not nice people. Okay, and you can bear that out in the story of Genesis 6, where they talked about aliens coming down on Mount Hermon and taking wives. Okay. Those were aliens. They were not from this earth. The Bible calls them the Watchers. Well, just like there's these evil Watchers and these evil, not malicious, call them malicious beings, there are also very, very good angelic aliens, those that are still hanging out with the Creator, still with the Creator. And don't forget, guys, this is what I want everybody to understand. While these evil entities look unbeatable, they are so not invincible. They're shaking in their boots of what's happening right now, because they can see that this is the end of their reign on this planet, and that's what I believe. That their subversion of the human race is coming to an end. And what a Christian would call that judgment, I call that the rooster has come home to roost with these guys, and they know it. They're desperately trying to hide. They're desperately trying. But guess what? There's this. Do you notice how everything's just coming clear now, guys? Like, I'll give you an example. The whole revelation about Hillary Clinton, we knew about Hillary Clinton, and we knew about the whole nuclear deal back with the whole, with the whole standoff that happened out in Oregon, okay? That was all about nuclear energy, guys. That wasn't about rights or anything like that. These landowners were being pushed off because of nuclear energy. And, by the way, we find out that now Russia has control of 20% of our nuclear capacity because of Clinton. That revelation came out last week, okay? Jeff Sessions said that the investigation is still ongoing. He would not comment on it. That means that there's an active investigation to indict. And they're going to. I think Trump has been holding back these punches until he has the strategic advantage, and then he unleashes. And you'll notice that with Weinstein, too. I believe Trump and the Justice Department were behind that. They're behind all these pedophilia rings coming down. There was 300 people arrested in Florida yesterday for pedophilia. So I see this like great judgment happening right now, where it's like, you know what? The jig is up, evil. The jig is up, deception. The jig is up, lie. We're coming at you, man, with truth. And truth is going to win. truth sets people free, right? And
it's really unfolding, the pedophilia, isn't it? You know, we need to get a hold of Kevin Annett and re-interview him, Steve.
We do. And by the way, the pressure on Kevin and that group has never been greater. We get their newsletters now and everything like that. But the point I'm trying to make is there's been great evil in this earth that has really come to a climax in the last 10 years. It's just blatantly there. People know there's a deep state. People know that there's Luciferians that run the country. People know that, anything from Bohemian Grove to, these ritual, which I think was a ritual killing in Las Vegas. These things are all Luciferian, okay? And they're coming to the end of the rope. I'm not pulling any punches tonight, guys. Satanism, Luciferianism, self-serving, you're going to be defeated. Period. There is no chance for you to win this fight. Give up. I'm begging you to surrender, because you're not going to like what happens if you don't.
Okay, for those that are on the phone, if you wish to speak to Steve, push *8 and I will unmute you. And for those that are new in the window, you have to call in on the phone if you wish to talk to us. So 1-724-444-7444, 43503#, and then £1, and that'll bring you into the window. You got a question in the chat again, Steve. Guest 22 wants to know about the red PX cloud object at the 10 o'clock position.
Oh, that's in Webcams to Mexico, and thank you for bringing up Webcams to Mexico. For a long time, we weren't seeing, we were just seeing the refractions and different things. But just recently, the last 3 weeks, Webcams to Mexico are completely off the hook. We observed an object, red, boiling clouds. The sun goes by it and is obfuscated. You could see, details inside of it. And, and this is all coming from Webcams to Mexico. In fact, I told my subscribers the other day, I said, go down to Webcams to Mexico and just go from site to site. You will see Nibiru. You will. You're going to see it. It's as plain as day down there. And again, it goes back to this. The reason that they don't do anything about it, the reason they don't feel it, because they don't think anybody's going to believe it. They don't care. They don't care. Look, they'll say to WSO or they'll say to Planet X or any of these channels, they'll say, go ahead and put your stuff out there, man. We don't care. Nobody's going to believe you.
Crazy.
It's gotten to the point now where I feel like they don't even care about me anymore. There was a point where I was getting a lot of resistance, but now it's getting to the point where it's like, you know what? We don't care anymore. It's getting to the point now where they just don't care. And that, to me, is another sign of how close we are to the event.
Well, and it's another good point you just brought up. Do you think we've wakened up enough people as we're going to wake? In other words, those who are going to be awake are awake, which, let's say, it's that percentage of what the New World Order elites want to believe is what's going to exist for them, which in my reality, in your reality, I think, is going to be actually all of us who don't live on coastlines, who are going to have to go through this process of the, reinvention of the human species and leave all those people behind. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so what happens in the aftermath, right?
Right.
And that to me is the spiritual battle that we're in right now. We are fighting for the aftermath. We're fighting for that right now. Because if we go into this fully deceived, they'll be able to continue to deceive us. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got that. But Steve, we've been deceived all along. It's really
what
internet.
I'm saying is, if you have a good percentage of people that are woken up before the event goes down, then their lies lose their teeth.
Right,
so
but wouldn't you say that the internet has been solely responsible for the largest awakening of humanity that's ever existed? And the reason I'm saying this is because that was an invention from them, who they were supposed to use to manipulate us, but we actually turned it around on them.
Yeah, and it goes back to the and this is one of the good things about humans. We're very innovative. Okay, we're very resourceful. Okay, So they put that, actually the internet on the official paper was created to be a nuclear-resistant communication system, redundant packet-controlled, TCP. And so it was designed to withstand a nuclear war. So one of the things that a lot of people are worried about is that we're going to lose the internet during this time. I don't believe we're going to lose the internet, guys. Some people will. Depends on where you're at. But for the backbone of the internet is designed to withstand this, believe it or not.
Well, let me ask you.
You have another question in the chat, and they want to know, guest 46 wants to know, the reason we cannot see this with our naked eye is it because we can only see it with infrared?
No, actually, we are seeing it with our naked eye right now. This is going to take me a minute, so just give me a second, right? The first thing I need to point out to you is there's this really bad condition that human beings have called cognitive dissonance. And a good story that really illustrates this, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a great metaphor, okay? When the Spanish invaded the Incan empires, it was said that the warriors that were standing on the shore, the ones that were responsible for defending, the Spanish galleons, the ships, were so foreign to their minds, were so completely science fiction to them, they didn't even see them. It was right in front of them, and they couldn't see it. All they could see was the water.
Oh.
Now, if that was true, and I do believe that's a true story, that's reason number one why you don't see it. Number two, though, and this is new information. We have been struggling with this for 2 years. We had a breakthrough this week. We actually had a person that discovered and used prism simulation to explain why we have a big red halo in the sky. As it turns out, the only thing that could cause such a light effect in the sky is a prism. The reason you'd put the prism there is because it will direct all the light of the object. In other words, if you looked right at it, you would not see it. You just see a big halo.
Well, Steve, can I interrupt just for a second here? I mean, everybody's been talking about this. I was going to ask him about the light reflectors that everybody's been talking about.
We got a guest that called in, and I want to hear what this. I hate to take over, you guys.
That's good. It's good. It's all good.
Okay, you can ask in a minute, okay, Robert?
Okay.
I want to hear guest 13 finally called in, you guys. He's from Houston. Let's find out what's going on down there. Welcome to the call, guest 13.
Oh, hello. This is Brad.
Hi, Brad.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Brad.
Yes, we can hear you.
The city's pretty much dried out now. The trash is all but been put to the curbs, but they're saying probably by Halloween is when they'll have it all picked up by. So everything's going along at a pretty good clip. I mean, we've got so many work crews here. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the amount of painters and roofers and the massive construction going down I-10, or not I-10, but 290. I mean, there's a lot going on in this town. It basically Harvey turned Houston into a boom town almost overnight.
Wow, that's fantastic. Let me ask you something, Brad. Is the government paying for most of the reconstruction, or are the insurance companies, if you happen to know, are the insurance companies paying out for all the massive damage? Of course, I'm talking residential.
Well, I personally didn't get flooded. I was one of the lucky ones that didn't. But
Thank God.
Yes, it came up to my door, but it didn't come in. So
Thank
we
God.
were really lucky. But an employee of mine, or not an employee, but a coworker of mine, who he's from his concrete out on the front doorstep down to the street is 12 feet in height. And they had 4 foot inside their home.
Wow.
So 16 feet inside that neighborhood. And after, because he was one of the ones that was part of the lawsuit that's going on right now about them opening up the floodgates and letting that one neighborhood flood. That if they would have held the gates, it wouldn't have flooded that neighborhood and everything would have been fine. But they were scared that it was going to go over the dam, so they went ahead and released it anyway. So
Wow.
There's going to be a major lawsuit on that. They're going to be suing the city over that. And my coworker is going to be part of it because he wouldn't have had water in his home had they not opened that gate.
Any news from Corpus Christi? Are they in the same state of rehabilitation, or do you know?
I don't know much about Corpus Christi, but I'm an X-ray tech guy, so I'm all over Houston. I'm fixing all kinds of doctors' X-ray equipment. So, most of my work here recently is pulling the X-ray equipment out and trashing it because of the flooding.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad that the cleanup is going so well. So it seems like there is the rehabilitation of at least Houston going on, which is fantastic to hear.
Yeah, and the amount of taco trucks we have now, there is literally a taco truck in every corner.
Well, that's great.
You got to feed the masses because they're the ones helping you. You got to feed them.
Hey, listen, I'm laughing because I think it's cute and adorable. I think that and here's one of the things that I saw in Harvey, and this is another thing that I don't think that they want to see. That is the powers that be. Houston had an invasion of what's called the Cajun Navy. Did you guys hear about that?
Oh yeah. Heard all about it.
Did you see those guys in action down there?
Oh yeah.
So I don't think
all over the.
Was it true that some of them were being held up by roadblocks by officials saying that we don't want you going to help? Are those stories true?
Yes, but I drove past an area when I was helping some people get out. And they were all lined up right there on Highway 6 to start helping people get out, but they wouldn't let them go through.
Oh, wow.
And so the Cajun Navy boys and girls, by the way, and my hat's off to you because what you did is you gave me great hope. And I believe that this is really what could be as likely to happen as dystopia. And that is that people are going to decide that it's time to help each other. And I saw a lot of that in Houston. Did you see that down in Houston, or am I just trying to feel good right now?
That was the main thing that was going on in Houston. They were like, man, the neighbors were here before the police and the fireworks, the fire department, because they were out there with their John boats and everything. We were basically prepared to help our neighbor.
Isn't that great? And to me, thank you for confirming that, because I want to remind people, I want to point to that situation in Harvey, because I saw one of the Cajun Navy get interviewed one day, and it just blew me away. And that is, we don't have to play their game. We can help each other. We can love each other, and they can't do squat about it.
And that's what it really comes down to. It really does. That's one of the biggest things that I always preached about when I was doing radio, Steve. It was, it's not the police, it's not FEMA, and it's certainly not the blue helmets, that the ones you're going to have to worry about. Because the moment the food goes away, and you can attest to this because you lived through it, right? The moment the food goes away, the water goes away, if, a day or two or even 3 days go by, but after that, people are going to start getting vicious. So either there's two things to do. It's either unite with your neighbors and rebuild that community, or turn into that Mad Max society, which everybody's been talking about for the last, 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, let's contrast Harvey with what happened with Katrina. What was different about Katrina? And guys, I know this is going to cause a lot of flack, but I need to say this. The majority of the people that were hurt in the Ninth Ward and all these different places were not people that were self-sufficient, guys. They depended on the government for their food stamps. They depend on the government for their health care. They depend on the government for everything. So what did the people of New Orleans do, or many of the people of New Orleans do? What they did was they sat and wait for help.
Right, because that's what the government has told them and led them to believe. This is the unfortunate part of our society that we live in now.
That's why I think it's different about Texas in that Houston area. And if you've been in Houston, we have poor areas, we have rich areas. I get it, but in the by and by, kind of on par, most Texans are pretty damn self-reliant people. Okay, and they don't wait for the government. in Texas.
Well,
They don't.
we kind of go by a little bit of a mantra, and it kind of goes along with the police. Is, you know, whenever you need a policeman, and seconds count. Policemen are minutes away.
I'm going to ask you something. It's Brad, right? Brad?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you something, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get the right answer on this. But I would say that 99.9% of people living in Texas are all armed. Were you one of those?
Oh, definitely.
See, and that's the beauty of it right there. Because this is what it all comes down to with all these false flag events that have been taking place all over the United States, is to try and take our gun rights away. And this has happened in every country. This has been documented in every history book. The moment they take your weapons away, they have complete and total control of you.
And see,
let me ask Brad a question. Brad, what happened with the FEMA barges? Did they show up?
The FEMA barges?
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that one. I didn't look in on that one. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I just thought you might know. Because we kept hearing all these stories that they were forcing people to go to the barges and, you know, and then it just kind of, the story kind of disappeared.
Well, I know that when we first started out, when the storm, right after the storm hit, that they wanted to bring a lot of the people that were on the outskirts into the dome area, where the Astrodome Arena area, because it was a fully functional, basically small city. It had all your washaterias, your hospital, your grocery store, you know, places to sleep. I mean, everything that you would ever need to be able to weather a storm and then start to rebuild your life. And did we see that in Louisiana?
Absolutely.
I don't think so. They went to
I would say in Louisiana what we had were a bunch of people that ran to the Superdome and just piled in and just waited for help. This is another. I'll tell you another story. Puerto Rico. I did a story.
Steve, really quick before you get into that, what I meant by I really think so is, what about all the local TV stations who were going around and filming what was happening before it took place, and you had all these well-armed people in their homes with the military coming through, and I hope you guys remember this video because it's still on YouTube, well-armed people, the military going through and basically taking their weapons away from them before the storm hit. Okay? That was another ploy by the government to take the weapons away from the people. Remember the old woman who was in her house. Now, this was right as the storm was happening, or slightly after. She was in her home. She had plenty of food. She had a weapon, and the police broke in. They basically broke her arm. A very elderly woman, probably in her upper 70s, early 80s. That was the military. They broke in and took her weapon. So I guarantee you that most of the United States is well armed. It is the ploy of all governments, whether it be the front government, the white government, the black government, in the shadows, running this thing, or the front, or working together, however it is, that they want a disarmed population, so then they're ripe for abuse.
Well, I would just love for the main media just to state whenever these shootings happen and they go after saying, hey, we need to have gun control, they need to turn that around and not say gun control. They should say gun confiscation, because that's exactly what they want. They don't want us to have control. They want us to have compensation from us. I mean,
well, I think that the gun ownership issue in America is really not. It's not even our government that's necessarily as concerned about it as other governments are, and that's what bothers me, is that it seems like our government capitulates to world pressure on the arms issue. That's what bothers me. The United States government, now, well, Trump's different, but the United States government should tell every country in the world that we're going to arm every one of our citizens.
Yeah.
Like Switzerland.
Well, look at Steve. Look at Switzerland. Every citizen is It's in their constitution. Every citizen by law is to be armed in their own homes. You know how many break-ins and murders they have in Switzerland? Zero.
And by the way,
unless they take their own
get
life.
Fully automatic weapons.
That's right. You got it.
So I don't know where you guys. There's another way to deal with gun control, and that's give everybody a gun. Now, I know that's as ridiculous as the opposite. But I'm trying to make a point, and the point is this: just Wisconsin, just the state of Wisconsin, there are 600,000 gun owners. 600,000. That means we have an army in Wisconsin. Little Wisconsin, right? Little dairy state has an army of 600,000 men. You don't think that bothers the world? It bothers the world, guys. It bothers China. It bothers Russia. It bothers them. They don't like it.
Well, that's why Japan never attacked the West Coast, by the way, because they knew that most of the citizens of the United States on the West Coast were so heavily armed that would be a massive defeat on their end. That's why they never attacked California, and they went after Pearl Harbor, which was allowed, of course, by Roosevelt, but that's another story.
Yeah, another one of our false flags that history is now teaching us is true.
That's right.
So Pearl Harbor got us into World War II. 9/11 got us into Iraq.
And 2008 got us into the biggest mass depression that we've ever lived through, and we're still living through it. And if people don't believe me, just go look on just about every street corner and see how many people you see homeless. And there's a good portion of those people who are homeless who are vets, okay, not receiving the benefits.
Hey, guys, speaking of economics, I've got a little gem for you here. You all know the guy by the name of Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank?
Yes, that's the guy who told his daughter she was stupid for buying Bitcoin, by the way.
Well, now he's threatening Trump with crashing the market if he doesn't get this tax thing pushed through. Did you hear about that? Now,
I did.
What would that do if this thing were to fly by right about December time period, right about the time he wanted to crash that market?
Well, here's the funny part, isn't it, Brad? That stupid Trump, and I'm going to say stupid because he's far too intelligent to take on the Wall Street rhetoric. So either he's bought it hook, line, and sinker, or he knows something that we don't know. But he says, look at remember when he was campaigning, we're in a big bubble. We're in a big fat bubble. Everything is a bubble. There's no jobs. Right. Unemployment is through the roof. Now his tune's all changed, hasn't it? This has been the lowest unemployment in 17 years. We're at 4% or whatever ridiculous number that they're all preaching. He's taken the Wall Street bubble on. He's saying, look at the Wall Street. We're at 23,000. And he's buying it. He's owning it all. And he's setting himself up for the biggest collapse in the history of the world, not the United States, the world.
Every economic professor is saying the same thing. This is all signs of a big burst of the bubble.
Right.
Every professor is saying it. I don't know what is wrong with him.
It's easy.
Right?
Remember, he said he wanted to drain the swamp. Well, what's happened is the swamp has drained him, and he won't admit it. You see, because he has to play ball with the cabal. I'm sorry to be, so rhymey in a weird kind of way, but that's the bottom line. He's playing ball with the cabal, because if he doesn't, it's going to be, history for him. And, that's another JFK, in my opinion, just sitting there waiting to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunately.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think that he's out of fight, and first of all, I'm not sure that he's not part of everything yet. I'm still, the jury's out as far as I'm concerned. But the recent prosecutions coming through the Justice Department and the FBI on pedophilia gives me great hope, guys. I do want to give the credit where credit's due, and that's the Justice Department and the Trump FBI that's busting pedophiles, and that's something that Obama never did, not once. Not that I know of.
You don't get any disagreement from me, but my grievance is this, Steve, and then let me get your thought on this as well. You know, with all the WikiLeaks information and releases that Julian Assange put out, basically he has John Podesta and his brother dead to rights as the biggest pedophiles of the planet, probably feeding off, you know, that trickle down. You remember the old Reaganomics trickle down? Well, probably from the pedophilic trickle down from the Podesta brothers, which is all basically intertwined and, tentacled out to just about every position in Washington. So everybody's got something on everybody else in Washington. So the moment the Podesta brothers were to be captured, you know, and this is why the mainstream media has all stayed away from it, but a lot of the alternative media, which is all us, by the way, who have just said, look, all you got to do is read this and know that these people are pedophiles. Nobody will touch it. Why? Because all of Washington will crumble. Let me get your thoughts on that, Steve.
Oh, I don't even know how to address that. I know. It's a can of worms, brother. It is, and I'm gonna pass on this for a minute. I need to think about that for a minute.
Okay.
This is getting complicated, guys, and
it is. It is.
And this is why we need each other so bad right now. This truth community, and I don't mean to shift the topic, but this type of question exactly is the type of thing that we need to be pulling apart of the truth community. And this kind of goes back to your internet comment before and kind of address that. And that is the fact that they were not ready for the adoption rate of the internet. Okay? And that's what happened. They, like, the back of the boat got swished because too many people could make too much money on the internet, and so that basically their controls came off of it. And so truth can go everywhere now. But what are they doing about that? What they're doing about that is they've created troll armies, which are proven. So the way they combat it is so dishonest and so evil. It's like they don't even address things directly. What they do is they address things just like they always do, with subterfuge, wickedness, and lies.
Hey, Steve, they came after me after I I fought for you on one subject, and they came after me like there was no tomorrow.
Let's talk about that for a second. So if you're a WSO subscriber, and you've been with me any period of time, if you try to make a comment,
2 years.
If you try to make a positive comment on my channel, that is guaranteed to put 5 trolls on your ass.
Yeah, I know.
I have a guy, right, and this is going to sound preposterous, guys, but it's true. I have a new researcher that I've been working with, John, and he has a small YouTube channel, and as soon as he started working with me and connecting dots with me, he's been followed by drones. Last night he has film of it where he was being followed by drones. He was being followed by people. His phone was being interrupted. He was not able to make calls, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me, why are they doing that?
Well, that's easy.
Why?
I can tell you that. I could definitely tell you that because they don't want the truth getting out. It's as simple as that. I mean, I have the black helicopters over my house, Steve. Exactly.
They don't want people to corroborate and collaborate with me.
Exactly. Because the moment anybody starts speaking truth, oh no, we can't have them infiltrate our lives with truth because all of a sudden the jig is up. Can't have that. Can't have the space warden, deep space, off-world, fleet. We can't have that exposed. We can't have the free energy exposed. We can't have the reality of the lies to maintain control exposed. We can't have any of that. We can't have it. We have to maintain control.
And here's what they're terrified about. Let me explain to you guys why they do this, okay? There's a very important reason why they do it. There was a book written a couple of years ago by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell called Tipping Point. Have you ever heard of it? It's a marketing book. in there, in the book Tipping Point, they used what do you call it? Disease rates. Like, when does a disease hit a tipping point and then become so bad that you can't stop it, right? And then the second example he used was, when is there a tipping point in marketing where you're just another voice in the wilderness as opposed to like becoming the in thing, right? In both circumstances, it all relies on what we call mavens, people that other people trust, okay? And if people that other people trust start saying good things about your product or service, and that groundswell happens, there's a place called the tipping point where that thing will go exponential. They are terrified that this knowledge is going to go exponential. So what they are doing is they're trying to prevent the tipping point on this issue. And the way they do that is they attack individual – are you listening to me, guys? They are putting resources – like if I get 300 comments on my page, right, on a video, literally anybody that has a positive comment is going to get attention because they do not want the mavens to start supporting what I'm saying. If they do, if they let that go freewheel, I wouldn't be getting 20,000 views a video. I'd be getting 20 million views a video. You hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So listen, there's psychology and there's deeply studied things that they know that if they don't hold the lid down on this thing, guys, it will go viral.
Now, Steve, I have a question for you, a little off topic. I know you've had some issues with Scott in the past. I just saw one of your recent videos, and I know he's been having some issues, whatever's going on. I really don't know the inner workings of all that, but it was really nice of you to put out the video and say, hey, Scott, whatever's happened in the past is the past. Our door's always open. We don't hold any grudges or malicious thoughts. So it was really nice. I needed to say that.
Yeah, I'm going to say something about this, okay? And I'm trying not to talk about this publicly, guys, okay?
Okay.
But here's the reason. We need to put pressure on Scott to stop it. And what I mean by that is we need to come together as a community. I don't care who has the number one channel. I don't care who's the number one voice for Nibiru. If Scott ends up being the guy that goes to have to talk to presidents and kings, then I will be supporting him to do that, okay? So my public statement about Scott Sion and about the Nibiru Planet X channel and Claudia and all that is that we at WSO fully support you and fully support your efforts. We are begging you to work with us and begging you to collaborate. The last thing that they want to see, this is their tactic. This has been from time immemorial their tactic.
Conquer and divide, Steve.
Divide and conquer, right. So what do? They take the two biggest Nibiru channels. Scott and I had been collaborating perfectly up until just a couple months ago. What happened? They start planting rumors, and they start planting lies, and they start planting information. They feed you information that's false on purpose to try to make you look like you're against the other person. This is an engineered division in our community.
Well, let me ask you.
This isn't Scott. This isn't Steve. This is engineered by an outside entity. Guys,
I agree with you.
Understand that.
Steve, I agree with you. So would you believe that Chris Potter was a plant in all this to create the division and separation between everything that's happened? Just a quick thought here.
No, I think Chris Potter is an innocent bystander, and he's easily manipulated, quite frankly. Okay, and so you want to talk about going with just whatever. Yeah.
Well, Steve, really quick. So you're saying that Chris was a plant as a manipulator, or he was just involved himself and became a manipulator? I wasn't quite clear on what you.
I think Chris Potter was manipulated.
Okay, he was manipulated by someone else. So he was put in there because he was given certain information, and in other words, because maybe Chris believed a certain something that he was told, he was put in there to disrupt the coagulation of of evidence that you guys were all putting together.
No, yeah, and it's not just Chris. Again, I want to say, be very clear, Chris. I believe Chris Crowder's a very honest broker, and he's done. He quit. He's done. He doesn't want to do it anymore, and I understand it.
He
but
took his channel down.
Yeah, and here's the thing, guys. All of this, listen to me, please. This isn't Scott. This isn't Claudia. This isn't Steve Olson. This is an outside force, an outside entity that is trying to sow seeds of discord and disunity in our community because we're so small. We are so small. Total, maybe 200,000 people, guys, in the world that know what we know.
Well, I'm gonna step on your toes a little bit here, Steve, because I was doing this going back to well beyond 2006. I know many people in the community, and I would say that it's in the millions of people, not 200,000. I'm going to say in the millions because of the numbers I've seen, the people I've spoke to, and all the many conferences I did in the past. So I'm giving you a boost as well into the millions, my friend.
No, I actually can validate what you're saying. Before I was on their radar, it was a small channel, and maybe I'd have 10,000 subscribers, smaller channel, smallish. I was getting 300,000 views on my videos back then.
Exactly.
Something happened, and it wasn't my content changed. It wasn't that something, that we went horribly wrong. It wasn't anything like that. They literally choked us off. They will not let my videos go into 40 countries in the world, guys. Period. Blocked.
Steve, they're so afraid of little old you. Oh, my gosh. The power that these people must have to be so afraid of a little guy.
A YouTube channel and an Apple computer, guys. And, we're obviously investing in our Truth Underground, which Badbaby and I'll probably talk about later. But I'm just saying, what kind of a threat could I be? Well, the threat is that you put together a concise presentation that proves that this thing exists, and we don't want people to see it.
Well,
some of the photos that we show are so compelling, guys. It's like the little video I did today was just this montage of photographs because I'm getting thousands of them now, right?
Well, they want everybody. Steve, the point is, and you've put it across so many times, they want everybody to die in place. If you're on that coastline, we're so sorry. I'm sorry we didn't tell you, but that landmass that you're standing on currently with a home and property and so many friends around you, that's all going to be gone. I'm sorry. We neglected to tell you that at the last moment as all these land masses subside underwater. This is the whole point of this. And again, it reverts back to the Georgia Guidestones. It reverts back to exactly what you said about the Deagle website, and this goes back into the Agenda 21 papers and to the spraying of our skies, the poisoning of our food, the poisoning of our water. I mean, how many more examples do we need? Oh, by the way, how many more examples do we need of, these false flag events where real people die, but they use these events to take away more of our rights so we stay in place as we are inundated by massive amounts of water. I'm sorry, Steve, but this is so passionate for me that I lose it when we start talking about this stuff.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we got to take the questions here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to unmute you, Washington. Okay, Washington State, welcome to the call. You're on the air with Steve Olson and Badbaby and Robert Pepino.
Yeah, hello. Hey, this is Dave. How you guys doing?
Doing well, my friend.
Yeah, I just want to chime in to say, hey, charter member here, Steve. I love your stuff. But I just want to, shout out. One thing I'm kind of wondering, get your opinion on, is this November 4th date coming up with all these wackos planning some craziness. And what do you guys think is going to happen there? Is it just going to get shut down and we're just going to laugh at them? Or is there going to be some sort of civil unrest starting? Is this our black swan coming up? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. So, in fact, I was just researching a a cryptic riddle comment that I had on my site, and it had exactly to do with that. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. So here's the thing about November 4th. It's like all of a sudden they're talking about this November 4th. Where did this come from primarily? Was it Antifa that we found out about the November 4th, guys? Is that where it came from?
Yeah.
That's where I got my Antifa, yeah. That's where I heard from them. And
so
they're arming up guns and knives and shit. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know. It's a bunch of dumb kids mostly, but who knows? I mean, they're probably the perfect, demographic to go out and do this,
Oh, interesting demographics, and we'll come back to the question. The very interesting thing about demographics. If I look at my channel right now, less than 3% of my audience is millennial.
Wow.
Most of my audience, guys, 90% of my audience is older than 40 years old.
Yeah, 43 years.
People better think twice if you're going to come down to Houston, because we're all armed here.
Yeah, look, man, Texas, I love Texas. Listen to me. Texas is like, I feel when I go across that Texas border that I come back into America again, guys. That's how much I love Texas, okay?
Yeah, you know what?
Texas
All I
beautiful.
say is the stars are big and bright in Texas tonight. That's all I can say.
Well, and Texas is a threat. Look at Jade Helm, okay?
Yeah.
That's right.
Texas
That's right.
was declared an enemy territory, guys.
That's right. And who's
Come on,
been trying
man.
to claim sovereignty? Who has been trying to claim sovereignty break away from the so-called federal government? Texas.
Who had the fortitude to confront the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, guys, is a private bank. It's not a federal anything. It's the Rothschild banking empire.
Right.
They were the only ones that had the fortitude to stand up to them and says, "We want our gold out of your reserve."
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Did they get their gold, by the way, or are they still stalling on them?
From what I hear, I think we have some of it, but we haven't gotten it all.
Right. I think you guys got a quarter of it back from what I've been reading.
But again,
this is a state. We're praying for you all down there that are suffering, and we're also praying for those in California that are suffering, and all the people that are being devastated and taken out of their homes through these disasters. You're all in our prayers.
But again, I'm listening to this miracle story, and I'm so glad we got it on the air tonight. Houston is recovering because that's Texas, baby. Yeah. I believe, honestly, listen to me when I say this, I'm not kidding. Texas is the United States' last hope.
That's why I said they better think twice before they show up here.
Well, that was the other thing was Texas, I think, can man a 3 million man army.
Well, I can tell you this, Texas, that Arizona's got your back, and so does New Mexico, and so does Oregon, and so does Colorado, Louisiana,
but I'm saying in terms of
Alabama,
leadership, in terms of the role of standing up to this monster, the beast, Texas is the state that's been standing up to the beast.
Yeah, I agree.
And we need to take their example, and we need to let them lead.
We have no choice.
And I know that's not popular. That's not a popular thing to say in liberal America. It's not popular to say something like that. But somehow Texas has retained the sense of liberty that we all fought for, guys.
Hey, Steve, I'll bet you $100 that there are no drag queens in any libraries in Texas reading My Little Engine Could to a bunch of 3-year-olds. I'll put donuts and dollars.
And I don't want to make it sound like Texas is perfect. It's perfect. They're not perfect. Texans will tell you it's not perfect. Okay. But to your point, there's still boys and girls bathrooms in Texas.
That damn right there are.
Michelle Obama.
So anyway, I'm not trying to blow smoke up Texas, Dress, but I will tell you this, that I lived in Texas for a couple of years when I was in the military. I fell in love with that state, and I really do believe that they are going to be one of the leaders in the resistance to the end.
I gotta give you a little bad baby humor here about the bathrooms. When they first started that, unisex bathroom crap, I went over to the township offices here, and they were changing the tags. And I said to the guy over there, Bill, Bill, are you changing the tags on these bathrooms? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm a bit confused. Can you help me? And he said, well, what are you confused about? I said, well, I'm a woman with big balls. Which one do I use?
I'm glad you said it and I didn't have to say it tonight.
And that's my bad baby humor for the night.
That was good.
No, guys, if you want to meet a tough person on this earth, you bad baby. You are a tough lady, and I give you a lot. I don't want to get into a big love session, but I do want to tell you how much I respect you, honey. I do. I respect you with my heart.
Thank you, sweetie. Well, I'm like a Timex. I take a licking and keep on ticking.
Damn right you do, and I've seen it firsthand. You wouldn't believe.
I think when they decided to target me, they didn't notice I was a redhead.
That's for the gingers.
So anyway,
okay, you guys, go on back to your conversation.
No, well, let's go back to the Jade Helm thing for a second, right? And one of the problems, and the reason I want to make a point here, is one of the problems we have as a truther community is we forget too fast.
That's
you know,
the whole
it was
world,
only a year ago that they were putting a computer in charge of an army to invade and to go to war with American states. Guys, are you listening?
Yes.
They were practicing to go to war against the United States.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Steve, because before we ever attacked Afghanistan, which was a joke, and then going into Iraq, before 9/11, I was privy to some information through a person that I knew who was involved in training exercises. He was a military person who told me they had been training 2 years prior to attack Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, what does that tell you? Pre-planned, ready to go, manipulate, create the problem, then we give them the solution. It's always the same MO, Steve. Always. Problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, it's a learned behavior, and it's create a problem. Dave Icke talks about this all the time. Create a problem, and then be the one with the solution, and just make sure that your solution further entraps and further imprisons and further enslaves.
That's right. While taking away the common citizen's right. Without
and
a question.
There's going to have to be something in America, guys, and I don't want it to be a war. And I just feel like they're pushing us into this very unnatural position of hating each other. It used to be in America that you could be a liberal and I could be a conservative, and we could have dinner together, and we could argue about stuff, and then we would hug each other, kiss each other, and go home. Because we knew that if we wanted our way, what we needed to do is get out the vote, right? If we wanted to get our way, we had to wait till the next election cycle. That was the way things used to be. Now, because of the millennials, guys, listen to me, they're so entitled. They feel like they can get anything they want, and then when they don't get what they want, they feel that they can justify violence to get it. That's different.
Steve, they have been intoxicated with a euphoria called Americanism, okay? They are entitled. They feel they are all entitled to whatever they believe is that entitlement for them. How did this get created? Through the manipulation of illusion, okay? Free money printing, access to the best of everything without ever having to work for anything. You have kids, okay, who are so-called, enlightened or educated human beings who go through 4 to 6 years of college, coming out no more intelligent than they did of their first year of high school. This is an entitlement program that they've initiated through the Rockefeller Foundation and other foundations of these entitlement programs to keep people programmed in their system of control, which is a regurgitated information system. That's all it is. Just run them through the machine, cycle them, process them, so we can maintain control of the mechanism, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. So we're in a heavy show tonight, guys. What are you doing to me here? You're getting into all the stuff here.
I'm sorry,
Well,
Stephen.
I have something, if you a thought on some of this. I was listening to your friend Wayne Steiger, too. You remember him, right?
Sure. Yeah, I love Wayne.
And he was talking about some of the waves that we're getting from the system, some of the energy that we're getting, some of the magnetic waves, the gravity waves, the electrical waves, all these different waves that we're given, are being burst upon us. Now, with that happening, do you think that might be amplifying the anger and amplifying everything that people are feeling, good and bad, and causing this?
Now you're taking us into a very interesting thought, okay? And this is something that people that if you haven't talked to the people that, by the way, Badbaby helped educate me on this stuff through the different people that we interviewed on WSO Live in the Deep State Blues show that we're starting. And what you're finding is and a great example of this 5G network. There's really no reason for it, okay? The reason that they're putting in the 5G network is because it's going to be able to cover literally every square inch of the planet. And what this is part of a control matrix. And part of this, guys, I know this sounds very tinfoil hat, but listen to me just for a second, okay? Put down your guards for just a second. Since the 60s, actually since the 40s, we've known that electromagnetic energy can change human behavior. We've known it. We've known it. We've used it as a weapon, okay? The United States has used this as a weapon, electromagnetic energy. I'll give you an example. Go ahead.
Yeah, they got scalers, is what they call them, I believe. That's what they say brought down that spaceship down in New Mexico there.
Yeah, radar. But no, let me continue with this electromagnetic, and where I'm going is MK Ultra, you guys. MK Ultra has been exposed. It's in the public record that they used electromagnetic energy to manipulate people's emotions. They are turning up emotions on us, guys. They are using all of this EMF to make us angry at each other. They're turning up the EMF to make us frustrated with each other. Your thoughts?
Well, I got a question on this. On all those towers, I put up cell phone repeaters in hospitals and stuff because of what I work in the X-ray room, so no signal can get in there because of the lead-lined walls. Well, when you hook up those things, and they require very little power. But when you look at those towers, do you see the power cables that are going up to those things? I mean, they are single aught or just huge, as big as your fist. And it's like they don't require that much power.
Let me tell you about my perpetrators up here that are radiating me from their house on the corner. They have a cable that's running directly up the telephone pole right into the transformer that's probably about 6 inches around.
Yeah. Why did they need that much power? Because those things
they're using a directed energy weapon on me.
Right. And that's what I'm getting at. I mean, your cell phone with the 5 volts that it runs off of can do up to, 26 miles? Something like that?
More or less, yes.
And that's on 5 volts. And how much are they putting out on those machines on the towers?
Well, what they're doing...
I was talking to a subscriber the other day, right? And he was talking about that he was getting interlocked into a road rage incident. Somebody was in a road rage behind him, right? And he was going to stop, and he was going to confront that person, and he was probably going to end up shooting him, okay? That bad of a confrontation. And, guys, I'm a spiritual guy, so you're going to have to just put up with the voice of God with me. But what happened was there was a strong impression, the voice of God, to him saying, don't do it. Just keep driving around the block until you lose him. He stops his car, and he starts to pray. And the Lord said, basically, that people are going to have to learn how to control their anger in this coming time because of the EMF. Yep. I know it sounds wild the way I say it, but here's a guy that actually got confronted with this, found himself getting angrier and angrier. This is not a normally angry guy. And then he, because he was praying, was able to break off of that and not turn into a violent situation. But I think a lot of the frustration that people are feeling are because of EMF. I really do.
Yeah, I agree, and we're going to have to learn to be very tolerant and to turn the other cheek.
I know I've been angry just for no reason, just sitting there just stewing for no reason. And that makes sense.
It's unnatural, isn't it? But let's talk about your experience for just a second. Does that feel natural when you feel that way? Is that something that you felt when you were a child?
Maybe when I was really young, and you're still kind of in that mercantile brain mode, but not in my adult life at all. And it's just the past few years. Every once in a while I would get it, but lately, you still just get, it's just random angry. And my brother is felt it also. We live in the same house together, and he's felt it too. And
well, can I interject something here to both of you though? I mean, the idea of there's nothing to be angry about. I think there's a lot to be angry about. I mean, just all the things we're talking about tonight and how we've been misled by every so-called person that is supposed to be a responsive truth teller, right? Our government's supposed to tell the truth, and our friends and our family and people we meet are supposed to tell the truth. Well, the reality is very few people tell the truth except for, your mother, your father, hopefully your siblings, and some of your best friends. But the reality is everybody lies through their damn teeth, and we've seen that over and over. So what don't we have to be angry about? Well, let's see. We're angry about the fact that our monetary system is a fiction. We're angry about the fact that we have extra solar bodies that are in our inner solar system at this point, that everybody in the higher echelon of government are lying to us about. They have all their underground caverns ready, all their foods ready to go. Same for China. You brought that up earlier, Steve, about the ghost cities. This goes on and on. What don't we have to be angry about for people smoking a little pot who get thrown in jail and then have excessive charges thrown on them as they get thrown through the system? The guy who goes steals a beer from a local, the little mini mart, but yet the criminals on Wall Street and the Clintons of the world run aimlessly free, who have left a body trail behind them, and that there are no indictments of any kind. So there's a lot to be angry about, okay? But here's the reality of that anger. You, me, and everybody listening to the show and shows just like this, we understand that line of garbage we've been fed, and we're sick of it, right? But we don't turn to anger. But all these people out there, and I've heard this over and over, right? They're so angry, and they don't know why they're angry. Is it the electromagnetic effects of Planet X, our sun, these EMPs that we're getting off the sun? I bet that has something to do with it. But it's probably a culmination of all this stuff that is now really penetrating through our core source of who we are as human beings. And I think we're pretty much getting sick and tired of it. A good portion of the people of the world don't know why it's happening. That small percentage, Steve, I say it's in a couple of million or so, we know. When we know, we are able to at least do something about it, control it, because we're understanding it. Just a thought, guys.
Right. Well, I think what I'm going to do is go back to what Badbaby said. And, a lot of people, when I say, like, I tongue-in-cheek say that I'm a Zen Christian, and I'm not really a Buddhist, guys, not in the religious sense. But what I do take from Buddhism is the ability to control fear. And when all through the Bible, you'll see, like, if an angel shows up, the first thing that they say usually is fear not, because usually the person that's seeing the angel is crapping their pants, right? So fear not, fear not, fear not. Theme of the Bible, right? All the way through. Fear not, fear not, fear not. Well, how the heck are you supposed to fear not? Well, there's a way to do it. It's called mindfulness. It's called you can control your breathing. You can settle yourself down. You can force yourself not to be angry. You can force yourself not to be frustrated by letting go and just getting into a state of peace. And that is part of what I believe real true prayer is, too. Prayer is the ability to become quiet before God and listen, not talk. Right?
Good point. It's a good point, Steve. Yeah.
You know, this is like one time I was riding with a beautiful Pakistani Muslim in England going to Heathrow Airport, and we were having a very deep conversation. I don't mean to bring this point out, but it's just one of those, it kind of illustrates how you combat fear, right? And, you know, we talked about, he kept telling about all the prayers and all the different things that they say to God. And near the end of the conversation, I looked at him and I said, well, what's God saying to you? That stumped him. How are you going to hear God's voice if you're constantly talking? How are you going to hear God's voice if you let yourself get so whipped up into anger that you can't hear nothing? You got to get quiet before the Lord. That's the way it works. You have a lot of noise there. You got to shut your brain off. Your crazy mind, okay? That's another thing you learn from the Buddhists. That we have a crazy-ass mind. It's a machine. It's a computer. It doesn't drive, guys. The spirit drives. And if you let your brain drive you, you will act crazy. The brains are crazy. Without control, spiritual control, a brain is crazy. But it's a wonderful tool in the hands of a spirit-led person. It's a powerful computer meant to be used to solve problems and all that good stuff. But your essence doesn't come from that brain pan, guys. It doesn't. Your essence comes from somewhere else.
Steve, you know what I find so curious? Within the last, it's about 10 years or so, all these zombie movies they made, right, of these flesh-eating, cannibalized human beings that are eating everybody. And it like goes in phases. And all of a sudden this new phase of, zombieism comes to light. And it's funny because then you watch the news and you get, these people who've gone off their rocker, smoking this or smoking that, eating people's faces. I mean, that's it sounds coincidental, but in the same respect, I wonder if because they're, I don't know, on such a mental low level or vibration that they're being affected heavily, and that with the induction of drugs into their system just makes them go wacko.
I think that they were really planning on a lot of people doing the drug flakka. And you look at those videos of those people on flakka, and they look like zombies.
Well, I'm going to bring in another angle to this, guys. That's a pretty disturbing idea, but it's one that's worthy of discussion. Okay, we know that Planet X is an electromagnetic storm, huge electromagnetic storm, EMF. Okay, we talk about being angry and possibly it being from cell phone towers. Well, imagine what a iron ball is going to do. Okay. I wonder if part of this is that people are going to literally lose their minds because of the electromagnetic energy and literally turn into zombies. Non-thinking,
Isn't
animalistic.
that what David Bowie in the Black Star song, he kind of, that video shows people vibrating and like they lost their minds.
Well, here's the even weirder part of what Steve just brought up, because I've been following something called the Webbot Report. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. I've been following this since the early 2000s. Okay, so you're aware of it. Cliff High talked about something called the Coastal Global Event, which has always been a constant in his Alta reports. Now, he's switched over and is concentrating more on the cryptocurrency stuff. But in his Alta reports, it has always been there called, the Coastal Global Event, which never took place. But he said, and always maintained this in his reporting, that he says the more something is in the works that doesn't come to fruition, the more it builds in the neuro-linguistic psychic impression that is imprinted on the paper. In other words, the stuff that people text or write It's filtered through his work, right? And then as it's filtered through his work, he captures certain certain words that structurally link themselves through their bots that give him a greater picture of what's going to happen in future events. Now, this maintained throughout the years called the Coastal Global Event as he depicted it, but it never has come to fruition, but it still continues to build. So I found that very curious the way you brought that up, Stephen. I thought that I'd just throw that in the mix, brother.
Well, it's almost like let me ask a question. So it's almost like the Final Destination type almost effect, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry, Steve. I missed part of that. Say that again.
You remember the movie, was it Final Destination? Was that the name of it, where they were supposed to die in this plane accident and they didn't, and death was going to get, it just created more and more pressure for their death to happen, right?
Oh, well, is it like that? Is it like a timeline event movie kind of thing?
It is. What happened was they were supposed to be on a plane that blew up in flight in this movie, right? And for some odd, cosmic reason, these four friends didn't end up on the plane like they were supposed to, so they almost ended up in like a different timeline almost. And anyway, I'm off on a tangent. The point is that this whole pressure of, I guess what you're trying to say is that there were events that were supposed to happen that didn't happen, and what happens now? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that still exists in the timeline event. It has never changed. It's always continued to build. It's just that he changed his focus off of the natural earth changes that have been happening, put all his concentration into the cryptocurrencies. And the reason he did that, by the way, is because he has basically really captured the true psyche of people where it can't be manipulated. But with the earth changes, okay, because of the timelines itself, or the timeline itself, or as physical earth continues to move forward, and we all have, the ability to, have the psychic intuition and understanding to say, look, we understand this could be an event, but because of our mind, our psychic ability, we have the ability to change that. I don't know if that event has changed, but it certainly looks to me that what we've been talking about all evening, with all the earth changes, events that are taking place, of all the photographic evidence that now is coming to light of Planet X, and by God, everybody's producing the evidence. And Steve, more so you than most people I know, it's there. We're seeing it. So as part of that Alta report, part of the process of what we're looking at as the Coastal Global Event, the events or event, it's been named so many things throughout the century, but we're looking at this.
Yeah, let's pursue this for a second, because I think this is interesting. Is it possible for us to change a timeline through consciousness? Is it possible?
In my opinion, I believe it is possible. I do believe it is possible. I don't say it is 100%, but I say that we can make small course corrections through the small body of people like ourselves who are involved in this, who are seeing these events and saying, well, we really don't want this to happen. Maybe we can divert it some way. Do I think physically, through our minds physically, we can change these events? I believe it's possible, but I don't know if it's 100% probable. I don't know, Steve.
Yeah, I think the probability is probably low, but, a lot of this, you got to shift gears, and you got to understand something about this event, and it's shifting gears to a spiritual discussion in a sense, right?
Yes,
Doesn't
absolutely.
It seem like that people that are tuned in to, let's say, Planet X or, any of these kind of conspiracies, that doesn't it seem like they have a common spiritual bond of some sort, like something's different about a person that is awake versus, a person that maybe isn't? That there's an openness, or I don't know how to describe it. What do you think?
Well, you made a good point. I mean, people who awake congregate to other people who are awake, right? Like minds attract. So as people wake up and they see a video of whatever 9/11, Planet X, the space program, the moon lies. I mean, you name it, JFK, whatever, and they go, wait a minute, something's not right here. The moment that sparks, right, the light bulb goes off and saying, there's something really not right here. And all of a sudden they start to gravitate towards things that they thought were all lies, and all of a sudden become realities because people have brought information to light which they did not know, which was hidden from them. So there's a congregation, in my opinion, of people of enlightenment and people who choose to remain asleep. Granted, you said it earlier, 97 point whatever population of the planet's asleep, but then there's that small percent, 2%, 1.5%, whatever it is, who are awake. There's a big paradigm shift happening here.
And the thing that makes – go ahead, sorry.
I have an important point on this is I think that all of our listeners here and everybody that they know could tweet the Trump not to let the JFK files come out, because that itself will take out the deep state.
Did they decide to release those files? By the way, I don't.
They're going. It's up on the 27th. It's up for vote on the 27th.
Oh, they're going to vote on it. They're going to vote on it.
The president has to say, okay, we're going to release it, or he can seal it up for another 25 years.
That's going to be a big tell, isn't it?
Big.
Oh, and the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA is screaming at him not to release them.
No, because it implicates the CIA.
Implicates the CIA, FBI, Deep State, NSA, NRO, and the rest of them.
It's going to also
who ran the operation.
It's going to expose Bush Sr.
Right,
absolutely.
Because
91, right? 91, guys. The New World Order speech. Remember that?
Yep.
We all remember that.
Repeat for our audience, though, and me too.
The New World Order speech?
We're coming
his
up on
New
the
World
last
Order.
5 minutes of the show.
Wow, that went fast.
Yeah. It always does.
Time flies when you're having
I love you
fun.
guys, by the way. I really do. I truly love you guys. I just appreciate you so much. And what
Steve,
you guys.
We love you, man. You're about truth, right? This is what it's all about. It's about it's enlightenment. I mean, you said
it's more than just scratching each other's backs, though. It's more there's this almost family feeling that's developing around our group, around our community. Like we're starting to look at each other like brothers and sisters.
That's called the soul group connection.
Yeah, well, explain what that means.
The soul group connection. All of us decided to come here on Earth to gather at this time for Earth's greatest need and people's consciousness' greatest need, which is the growth of our own consciousness, meaning all of us speaking here and listening to this show tonight and all the other shows like this, to bring our consciousness to a new level of enlightenment as Earth. This is my own take on this, guys, okay? But as Earth goes through its transformation, it's exactly what we're doing, going through our transformation, Earth is doing the same. Now it's going to take the people by surprise who are completely going to be caught unaware of all this as it happens, as we have been seeing throughout the past 5 years. But we're all aware of it, right? So we're all watching it and saying, please, people, wake up, understand what's going on, because we're aware. We came into this consciousness, and all the other people were trying to say, wake up, wake up, wake up. So as the Earth goes through its changes, land masses subside, other land masses come up. For those who are aware, guess what? They go through a thing called a cycle, and which I like to call it like a wash cycle. Wash, rinse, and repeat. And this is
Watchmen.
It's like a wash cycle. When you're washing clothes, it's wash, rinse, and repeat, because once you wash those clothes, rinse them, dry them, you wear them again, and then they get dirty once again, then you go through the cycle again. And this is how the evolutionary, in my opinion, works, is because consciousness, nothing ever dies. The physical body simply gets recycled. Your consciousness always stays intact. It gathers knowledge, and then when we go outside into the fourth dimensional plane, we give ourselves a rest, and then we say, okay, I'm ready to do this again, either here or someplace else, because it's always a constant state of growth, as the universe is. But that's my take on it.
Interesting.
Great to be alive.
Well, I have one last thought to finish with, since we're coming close to the end of the hour. Do you mind that, baby?
No, but can we let Washington, I think he wants to make a comment.
Go ahead. Let's have the comment first, for sure.
It's just an answer to stay alive. It's probably better to die. I think I work close to next consciousness. And you go ahead.
We're having a hard time understanding.
I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him either.
Well, I'm sorry we can't take your question. But if you can put it up on the text screen here before we finish, I'll try to.
He's not in the chat. He's not in the chat.
I'm
sorry. We are going to do another call, and we invite all you guys to come back and join us again. And I know there were some people that could not hear us in the chat. You can always come into the archives and listen to the recording later, and we'll let Steve take the floor now.
Right, and this is the thing I want people to understand clearly. Evil will not prevail. It's had its moment. Its climax is around the corner. Yes, I get it. But so much more, the forces of good are working for us, guys. There are smart beings. There are smart people. There are wonderful, smart as dragons, gentle as doves, people that are going to come into the forefront in the next year. And good is going to have its day. Trust me. Trust me on this.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it already is.
Steve, touch a little bit on Deep State Blues for a minute, and also a lot of people have contacted me, and I don't think they realize that if they were a member or if they were a participant in the conference, that they can get to your site to watch our videos. So can you explain that to them?
Okay, yes, thank you for the opportunity. So we have a premium website called WSO Live, and in there that's where we put our premium content, and basically that's one of the ways that we fund the ministry, okay? And what people do is they get access to special content in WSO Live. One of those shows that we do is called Deep State Blues. You say, well, Steve, why don't you put it out on YouTube? Here's why I don't put it on YouTube, because if I put a guest like Kevin Annette on YouTube, my channel will get shut down, guys. Do you understand me? If I put Kevin Annette on YouTube, they will shut my ass down. That's self-censorship. I refuse to participate. So what we do instead is we put it behind a firewall so that people can come and listen to it and not have to be influenced by YouTube or Google or anybody else. It's our own secure website. So Badbaby and I have been doing this show now for, 6-8 months now, and we've literally interviewed some of the top people in the conspiracy, and people that are opposing conspiracy, and people that are doing something about it. It's called Deep State Blues. And we interviewed just last week, we interviewed a guy named Walter Bosley, if you've ever heard of Walter Bosley. Walter's the one that's done deep research into breakaway civilizations. And the insights that he has does not allow me to put it on YouTube, guys, because it's verboten information. This is the stuff they don't want you to hear. And unfortunately, we find ourselves self-censoring on YouTube. And it's not just me. It's AMTV. It's all of them, man. We're all being forced to put our real content somewhere else. And that should tell you something.
Well, I can tell you this, Steve. I know that the YouTube platform is slowly deflating, and people are looking for new avenues to get out there. I know VidMe is growing pretty well. I get on there, once in a while. That's the climate. That's kind of the big thing that Badbaby and I are talking about. So Deep State Blues will have its own presence, and we're evolving it out of WSO Live. And what we're doing is we're creating a thing called the Truth Underground.
The Truth Underground is going to be one of those options. And we're just now getting ready to go out and start pitching this to other creators so that they'll have a safe place to go that's not advertiser driven, called Truth Underground. And not only do we have Truth Underground, the YouTube channel and the videos and the Deep State Blues and all the different people that are going to come into it in the safe environment, we've also started a huge terrestrial radio campaign. Our first show is WGSL in, believe it or not, New Orleans, where Jim hosts that show. We're going to be syndicating that show in the next 4 months, so watch for it. So we're creating a whole new, we're going to try to create one of those options. We don't think we're the ultimate. We just think that we're one of them. And so that's what's going to happen. More and more people are going to create their own networks because YouTube is screwed up horribly. They're going down the tubes, man. I'm sorry. There's no way YouTube's going to survive.
Yeah, well, Google has done that, right? They've done this to themselves. They bit off their own nose, basically, right? Despite their face. It's insanity.
That's an interesting story, right? What happened was that the Fortune 50, Fortune 500 actually, withdrew their advertising dollars from YouTube truth channels, or what they're calling fake news channels. And so ad revenue for YouTube channels like of my stature, last year, if I would have been making the views that I'm making this year, all-time highest views, 100,000 views a day on my channel, I get about $150 for that a day.
Right.
At most. So, and if had they not messed with it, if I was at this level last year this time, I'd be making $400 or $500 a video. Do you understand the difference in revenue? So there are people that were building whole ministries based on that timeline or on that revenue stream. And so here's the insidious thing about this, guys, and this is what you don't understand. You say, oh, it's the Fortune 500. They didn't want to participate. Well, they can take their dollars away. They're part of private corporations. You are sadly mistaken, my friend. 70% of the Fortune 500 is owned by government. Did you know that? Go look up the idea of a CAFR. Government invests in companies. How do you think Google started, man? They got an investment from the CIA. Are you listening? So here's the thing. You know, what's happened is that people don't even understand that the government has so much shareholder control of these companies that they can literally tell them what to do. It's true, guys.
Well, you know, I'll give you a perfect example is TalkShoe. I've been on here for like 14 years, and when I started, when they found out what I talk about, because I used to be every Friday night advertised on the homepage, on the Live Now page, and they won't even advertise my show. The only way that my show gets advertised is like if you put it up or if I put it up on Facebook or, and I had listeners that accidentally came into my window one night and said, oh, Badbaby, you're back. I never left. They said, well, you're not on the front page anymore. I said, they're blocking my show from being shown to anybody who comes in to talk to.
Yeah, you can't have truth out there. You know, that's just the sin.
Unless you know about it. Just a new person that would come and look at the TalkShoe page would never know I'm even in here.
Yeah, exactly.
See, so, again, what they're going to do, and what the good news is, right, is whatever the adversary needs for evil, God's going to turn around to good. That's my belief, okay? And what I think is going to happen with this is we're going to end up with a series of networks like Truth Underground and a couple other places that are going to become very popular with creators. And because creators want to come there, that's going to bring subscribers. And I think what's going to happen is over time we're going to create our own communication channels. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I think that's already there. I think that's already been established, Steve. I think it's just getting away from the controlled, monopolies, oligarchies like YouTube. That's what it really comes down to. We're just going over that last hurdle right now. But I think we're already there, my friend.
Well, I hope you're right. And again, all we need to do is just stay true to what we're doing. Don't deviate from the left or the right, and don't be intimidated. Don't ever be intimidated by these people. The last thing in the world you want to do is be intimidated. They can't stand courage. They can't stand it. They fear courage. They hate courage. They want to do everything to drive courage out of your heart. Well, let me tell you something, man. That's your biggest weapon, is courage.
Right.
And courage doesn't mean that you're brave all the time, you never have fear in your heart. What courage means is that even though you're terrified, you still stand up. That's courage.
That's the true heart of a lion, my friend.
There's no other choice, because if we let them continue down this path, we'll all be sheep, and I, for one, cannot stand that existence.
Yeah, I would take my own life rather than to go down that road. To be honest, I mean, I'm just being as honest as I can possibly be.
No, I mean, you're a lion too.
I would not want to live that hell, and it would be a hell. I mean, we've broken away from this hell, and we're going to steep ourselves even further into an enslavement system. I don't think so. No.
And so, yes, there's lots of bad things, but this goes back to the point I was trying to make. Evil is not that powerful. It's just had a day in the sun. It's almost over with, guys. Trust me on this. We are going to win. Liberty will be back.
Amen.
Freedom will be back. We're not going to lose, guys. Have confidence when you're fighting for truth. That in itself has a power in itself. When you stand for truth, it has a power of its own.
Well, it's manifested through what? Consciousness. That makes absolute sense to me, Steve.
And it has a reverberating effect. It's not just you. When you have courage and you stand up regardless of the fear that's in your heart, whatever, and you still stand up, there's going to be a person sitting next to you that's going to say, damn it, I'm standing up too. And another person will stand up, and another person will stand up, and then there'll be a tipping point. And that's what they don't want. And that's why we have to double down and force the tipping point.
It reminds me of an old proverb, how many lilies does it take to fill half of the pond? If you take one lily and multiply it by one every single day, and by the time it fills half of the pond, the master would ask the student, he says, now that the pond is filled with half the lilies, how many more days will it take for the pond to be filled with lilies? And the student, not knowing the answer, says, well, master, I don't know. And it was a simple answer. The master says, just one day.
One day.
And that's all it takes, one day.
And I think any minute, that tipping point's going to happen. And to your point, it might already be happening. But there's something that shifted this week, guys. I can't explain it. Something upshifted. We have been given, like the people of truth, the people of goodness, the people that aren't self-serving, those people. I don't know if you guys sensed it, but I sensed it. And it was this empowerment. It was almost like the Spirit of God was saying, I am going to give you the tools to win now. That's what I was hearing. And I believe that those tools and those roles and all of our gifts and all of our callings are going to be ignited at a greater level in the coming months. So be ready.
And I believe, Steve, we have found each other for a reason. All of us that have in the community that have met and networked together, it was all planned beforehand, and we have found each other to help those that are not awake go through this transition.
Right. But believe me, guys, I don't know how to quite put the right words on it, but we are so much more powerful than you even know. You don't even know how powerful love is. Love is the ultimate force. Love is the ultimate force in the universe. But there's this two-edged sword to this love thing, right? And I believe God is love, but God also cannot stand to see the innocent suffer, okay? And there's a point where my Jesus is going to turn into a lion, guys, and it ain't going to be pretty, okay? Because he can't stand it anymore, just like we can't stand it anymore, okay? That's my personal belief. That's my take, right? but it's judgment is going to come. And what judgment means is truth. Basically, truth being forced on you is what judgment is, okay? If you like it or not, you're going to hear the truth. That's judgment. And judgment can lead to one of two things: repentance, changing your mind, removing yourself from wickedness and evil, or you'll be destroyed. That's what's going to happen, guys. And I'm warning you, that's going to happen. So if you think that you're all high and mighty and you're evil, and you're self-serving, in your hedonism, in your hurting of other people, you think that that's going to go on forever, you're sadly mistaken, my friend.
Yeah. I know you guys were busy talking earlier, and I put a link up. I'm going to put it up again one more time. I hope it goes in. And it's Archie Bunker's take on gun control.
Nice to lighten up the load here a little bit.
I've seen that. I love it.
Because I often say that I'm the Archie Bunker. I'm the Archie Bunker of the truth community because I can't pronounce anything right. I say things wrong. I sound like damn Archie Bunker half the time, man.
You know what? It's blocking me from putting it in again. So you'll have to scroll back to my last post. But it's in there, if you can't find it, just go to YouTube and put Archie Bunker's take on gun control, and you get a laugh out of it. I love it. He says, you want to stop terrorism on the planes? Give everybody a gun.
What a pleasure being with you tonight. Thanks for having me on the show, Badbaby. It's good to hear you again, Robert.
Steve, always just, a great conversation. I want to do it again, my friend.
Yes, of course, we will.
We will have you back. Thank you guys both so much. I love you both. I love all you guys out there. We even went 15 minutes over for you. How do you like that?
It was awesome.
Okay, you guys.